Everybody has a Mount Rushmore of greatest guitar players, and there's probably some overlap between our lists. There are so many great guitar players to choose from. And nowadays it seems like there's a lot of focus on technically proficient players, and that in and of itself is not necessarily a bad thing, but it can be if that's all we focus on. In fact, a lot of my favorite guitar players, the players that have inspired me the most, aren't technically proficient. And a good example of what I'm talking about is the guitar player that we are looking at in this video. I am Zach Hval, singer, songwriter, guitar player extraordinaire, and this is Unsung 6-String Heroes. John Lee Hooker was born in August of 1917, though the date of his birth and actually the year he was born is somewhat under debate. Most official sources put it at 1917, although he claimed that he was born in 1920. His musical journey began when his mother married blues singer William Moore, who was Hooker's first significant influence. Moore would teach him some blues standards on the guitar. He ran away from home at age 14 and made his way to Memphis, where he performed on the famous Beale Street. His recording career began in 1948, when an LA-based label, Modern Records, released a demo of his. His first hit came in 1949, which is a classic song, Boogie Chillin'. From there, he would record for labels like Chess, although there he recorded under the name John Lee Booker. Throughout the 60s, he would gain recognition stateside and abroad, playing blues and folk festivals and releasing more hit songs and hit records and inspiring generations of guitar players. When it comes to guys like John Lee Hooker, it is so hard to find recommendations or live performances and things like that stick out just because there's so many for a recording career that began in the late 50s. So there isn't going to be a live performance that I can feel confident in recommending other than just saying go and look them up. But as far as record recommendations go, it really just depends on what you're looking for. If you're just curious, about John Lee Hooker, any compilation is gonna have one or more of the hits. I did scroll through a few of them just before recording this video, and yeah, I mean, you're gonna find, Boom Boom Boom, Boogie Chillin', Dimples, and things like that on just about any John Lee compilation album or CD. But for those of you who are like amateur blues historians such as myself, you want to go way back and look at, I believe his first album was House of Blues from 1959, if my memory serves me correct. And that one's kind of an interesting album. It's, it feels like it was sort of like pasted together, like glued together, like singles, some live performances, and some like really rough demos. So like not every song is as like well produced. So I mean that one, as a listening experience maybe isn't that pleasant, but to kind of just see where he came from is something that's worth checking out. Another album that I enjoyed as I went through took about a week and really went through his discography was the album That's My Story. I think, one of the things that people don't talk about with John Lee Hooker, besides the fact that he's an awesome guitar player, is his writing, his songwriting. He's actually as far as bluesmen go, a fairly prolific songwriter. I mean, I can't think of really anybody off the top of my head, that like was a really good original songwriter. A lot of the blues guys do kind of standards, and John Lee Hooker has some of those in his repertoire as well. But yeah, the song That's My Story, I think is a great example of that. And then, I believe it's either on the album Travelin' or The Folklore of John Lee Hooker. There's, a song that I didn't even think that he wrote, but Tupelo, about the flood of Tupelo, Mississippi. I had heard that on an Albert King compilation where Albert King was playing guitar, and I forget who was singing on that. But that is where I got introduced from that, and it turns out, it's a John Lee Hooker tune. A lot of these guys, I think, most of our modern, blues vocabulary, at least in terms of lyrics and guitar playing, kind of come from two guys, Freddie King and John Lee Hooker. So yeah, for sure, check out The Folklore of John Lee Hooker, Travelin', House of Blues, and That's My Story. Those 4 albums, those are about his first 4 records. And then from there, there's so much. I mean, you could look at Hooker and Heat. It's a compilation, or not a compilation, but rather a collaboration that he did with Canned Heat back in 1971, which is awesome. Of course, 1962's Burnin'. That is the origin, I believe, was where I think Boom Boom came out as a single, but then he put that on his album Burnin'. So there's some, just a good place to start. Again, with John Lee Hooker, a recording career that starts in like 1959 and goes all the way up until he died. I mean, he showed up in the Blues Brothers movie for a little bit. There's no shortage of John Lee Hooker content out there. As far as guitars go, it would seem, based on photos from throughout his career, his main guitar would be either an Epiphone Sheraton E212T or a Gibson ES330. Really, any semi-hollow body guitar should do the trick for those who are interested in that sound. As far as amps go, it would seem it was almost exclusively a Fender Silverface twin reverb amp. To me, the Gibson guitar and Fender amp combo is the sound of the blues. So many players from this era used this setup. I think of guys like B.B. King, Albert King, or even Freddie King, the Three Kings, if you will. At least, this is the sound of early blues when the Delta style was still being adopted into more of an electric contemporary sound. So why do I like him? Well, there's just a certain charm that comes with this old-timey blues stuff. I mean, I hate to be the guy that harps on, the technical players of the day, because you always get lumped in with guys that are just angry, sweaty neckbeards in their dungeon on the internet that like to hate on, Polyphia and Steve Vai and guys like that simply because they can't play that. And I'll be the first to admit I can't play like that, and I don't really have the desire to do that. I mean, I cut my teeth as a performer as a solo act, doing, a lot of Delta blues and acoustic blues. But my heart was never far from the electrified sounds of guys like B.B. King, Albert King, Stevie Ray Vaughan, and things like that. And so one of the reasons why I like John Lee Hooker is because it's kind of like the best of both worlds, right? I mean, if you go back and listen to those albums I recommended earlier, you'll hear a lot of it feels, very much like just at face value like those Delta blues records, but he's playing it on an electric guitar. And there is sometimes, it's just him. Sometimes he's with a band. And, I think it's really the marriage of those two things that I loved so much. And he just has such a simple way of, playing the guitar. Like, there's no complex chord voicings. He's not coming at you with fancy jazz chord grips and extensions and things like that. A lot of it is just the basic chords that we all start learning how to play, learn how to play when we start playing guitar, but there's a certain rhythm to it that he has and a certain feel that he has. And again, not to at all, put down people who, put a lot of emphasis on technique, but I will say that I'll take I'll take one guitar player that is very simple but has a lot of feel and a lot of soul over like 10,000 guitar players that are super technically proficient and know every chord in the book and can play all the, do these weird things with their hands like spiders crawling across the neck. All of that is cool, but if you don't have feel, if you don't know how to phrase and things like that, it doesn't land the same way. All you're doing is just trying to impress people, And like John Lee Hooker, it's just as simple can be. And there's a reason why blues music is still around today. It's because people resonate with it, and I think John Lee Hooker, as a songwriter, musician, and as just a man, conveyed all of that. by himself or with any of the ensembles and collaborations that he did throughout his career. And that is the story of John Lee Hooker, truly one of the textbook definition of unsung six-string heroes. Let me know what you think of John Lee Hooker down in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching this video, or any video. It really does mean the most. I hope that you would consider liking this video and subscribing to my YouTube channel here for more content like this, guitar lessons and things like that. But you would also want to subscribe for Musical Hangout, the live music experience that everybody and nobody is talking about. Musical Hangout here every Tuesday night at 6 p.m. Pacific time. I would also appreciate it if you would follow any of the links down below to give me a follow on Facebook, Instagram. For sure, one of the links I would really love it if you would click on is the link to my album down below. It's called Imaginary Songs. It came out in January. I would really appreciate you giving some attention to that. There's some, John Lee Hooker definitely wasn't far from my mind when I play, things like that, especially blues tunes. But that is a digression. I am Zach Hval, singer, songwriter, guitar player extraordinaire, signing off, reminding you that when I ask for directions, please don't use confusing words like east. Bread is bread, cheese is cheese, praise God. Hicha!
Hallelujah! Hallelujah!